Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning and welcome to winter. I mean, I have been holding my fingers crossed, but it finally gave out. The anti-snow dance finally failed to work, and here we are. Boy, it was saving up too. Something like 6 inches in the 6 inches of snow down in Anchorage. We got probably 3 or 4 here where I'm at in the valley, and we're ready to go. It's brutal, baby. But here we are, ready to dive into it on this Monday, the 6th of November. And I think we did pretty good. I mean, we dodged a few bullets all the way through until we finally got to our first major snowfall here in the South Central area. I know you folks in Fairbanks are like, suck it. But, I'm sorry. That's, it's that was supposed to be one of the benefits. It's supposed to be one of the bennies of living further south, is that we didn't have to deal with that quite as much as expected as we go through. All right, this morning on the program, what do we got going on? Well, we've got a few stories we're going to cover here this morning. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on, including that snowfall. And we're also going to talk a little bit about pre-election. Tomorrow is Election Day down here in the Mat-Su Valley. And so we're going to talk a little bit about pre-election stuff as well. And then in hour 2, we're going to be talking with State Senator Robb Myers for a little bit of Myers Monday. His video series is continuing. We've got the latest in, what is this? Is this the 5th video that Robb has been putting out there for a while? And you can find those over at his Myers for Alaska Facebook page. If you want to go watch that and take a look at it here before we get a chance to talk to him. His latest one came out on, must be Friday. 5 days ago. It was posted November 1st, Wednesday, November 1st. So you can go over there and take a look at it. It was talking about exactly how bad the economy is. And I will tell you that the picture that he paints, well, it ain't so great. It's not, no, I mean, it's really not grand. Let me just put it that way. It's really not that good. And so we're going to talk about that, and we will discuss that with State Senator Robb Myers here in hour 2 for our little jab at Myers Monday there. Meanwhile, I have gone ahead and put the phone lines in place. So if you want to call in this morning and talk about, who you're voting for tomorrow and why and what your thoughts are on any of that, the first hour today going to be dedicated towards a little bit of cleanup, some of the stories, and of course, the pre-election things that we need to go over. So, how was your weekend? How did you do? Was it everything you hoped for and then some? I slept a lot this weekend. I'll be honest with you. I slept a lot, and that daylight savings time thing, perfect, man. That was just that extra hour that I need. I woke up and I thought, man, why do I still want to, it's early. I should still go back to sleep. And then I realized I'd already gotten an extra hour, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess better than losing an hour. So I'm all okay with that. All okay. But didn't do a whole lot at all this weekend, other than trying to organize some stuff and get some things done and catch up on a little sleep, which I have needed. The last few weekends have been a little bit, it's wow. It's, last few weeks have been a little bit hucklebuck for me. So I'm ready to go. Anthony in the chat room just said, anti-snow dance, man, after you rubbing in no snow in Fairbanks' face for a month straight, we're doing the Barry Dukes and snow dance. Well, I mean, we already got that last year. I mean, that was the 3 foot of snow in my cul-de-sac dance that we dealt with last year, where we were snowed in for, I mean, days. We were stuck here for a couple, 3-4 days at one point during last winter. So, I mean, I think we deserved a little bit of a break, for today. All right. What was this Alaska's last daylight savings change, says David. I don't know. Are we stopping daylight savings time? I haven't heard anything about it. Maybe if somebody else can, maybe I wasn't paying attention. It's very possible, but it's here. They only got about a half an inch down on the peninsula. Somebody said Kenai got less than a half an inch, which I'm assuming that means that they won't have. Probably won't stick, which again is just more argument for why I should be moving further south. I'm sorry. I don't, I love Alaska, but I just, the more I see snow, the more I start to dislike it. I don't know why. It's just like at some point I'm like, no. It is what it is. All right, let's take a look at some of the stories and headlines that are going around here. It's a mad world. I don't think that we can, I don't think I can make any more of an argument from that other than what we're seeing in the news. We talked about it last week. There was a man in Kenai who was charged after submitting an online message to Senator Murkowski's office saying, this is where he was going to do like the whole Buffalo Bill thing and wear her skin as a jacket or something. I mean, it was just creepy stuff. And so he faced his first court appearance, and that was during Friday's hearing. And he just basically said yes or no, and who knows what's going to happen there. But we've got another winner. This is a true winner. Another true winner. This time in Anchorage. Police have taken into custody a man who they then charged with terroristic threatening following online social media posts that threatened gun violence against a downtown establishment. In response to an information request, APD said that 22-year-old Alexander Lynch was taken into custody at the Anchorage jail and charged with second-degree terroristic threatening made in connection to an event scheduled at the Willowa Social Club, which is a kind of a nightclub / concert venue in downtown Anchorage. Charging documents from the Department of Law showed that Lynch authored a post on Wednesday on Instagram that read, in part, "I'm going to shoot up the spot," referring to the club. 2 other witnesses called police to report the concerning comment and said that they knew Lynch. Officers were then able to find him by pinging his ankle monitor, which he was wearing for a previous DUI felony. Okay. You cannot write this stuff, man. Upon meeting him at his work, he said he knew why they were there, proceeded to tell investigators that he'd been drinking with friends on Wednesday night and was upset about seeing an advertisement for the event at Willowa. He told police he did not actually plan to shoot the place up and did not have access to guns. He said he deleted the original. But when you're on a DUI monitor, I think one of the things that they say is that you cannot have alcohol. But he was drinking on Wednesday night and got upset about seeing an ad for whatever event is taking place over at Willowa. I mean, you cannot make up this thing. And of course, with the recent shooting in Maine that happened at, public places and the bar. And of course, everybody's on edge about this kind of stuff. But I mean, this is a mad world. This is a mad, mad world. And so this guy, he's going to the House of Many Doors for a while, the old Crowbar Hotel. Well, just make yourself at home, buddy. That's what's happening. You're gonna be hanging out there for a while. Just you and the other guy who wanted to wear the senator as a cloak. The two of you, you might have adjoining cells at this point. I can't imagine that's going to be good for you. What else is happening? Of course, we did get that first major snowfall. Over 6 inches fell in Anchorage by 4 p.m. yesterday. That broke the single-day snow record for that date, Sunday, the November the 5th, previously set at 3.8 inches. So they got almost double what they normally get. And, of course, everybody forgot how to drive. 11 injury crashes, 29 non-injury crashes, 27 calls for distress. And that was just the Anchorage Police Department's response from the Knik River Bridge to the Seward Highway, to mile 73 of the Seward Highway. And they're forgetting. Now they're out in force trying to plow the roads and everything else. And they're just reminding everybody that, you may want to slow down. You may want to not follow so close. You may want to give yourself some, extra minutes to get to your destination. They may want to, do all the things and the stuff and the deals. You may want to do all that. So, I mean, I don't know why they forgot, in the intervening 5 months that you can't follow somebody at 70. Yesterday or last week, rather, I was watching some guy following somebody at 70 miles an hour because I was going 68 and they passed me they were probably going faster than that. Following somebody with less than half a car length behind him. If the guy ahead of them sneezed, they'd be in each other's laps. So probably not a good idea to do that today where there is potentially, it's 28 degrees right now, right? So potentially icy, snow, all that kind of stuff. And of course, everybody's holding their breath waiting to see what Mayor Bronson's snow removal plan is going to be like because of last year's debacle, which was I will admit, was a hot mess for everybody who worked or lived in Anchorage. It was brutal. Last year was brutal on the snow removal. They just could not get to it fast enough. So we'll see what happens there. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we will be back, and we'll have some open phone lines. We'll talk a little bit more about the election, and we will then be looking forward to talking to Senator Robb Myers in hour 2 for Myers Monday. It's all directly ahead. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thing in radio. Back with more after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man,
they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. How are you guys this morning? Y'all ready to go? Y'all ready? Teddy, all ready? What's going on? Yeah, not exactly a criminal. Robb Myers, not exactly a criminal mastermind. Yes, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, come on. It's like the guy who threatened Senator Murkowski's office. He did it from his home computer to her website, to the form on her website. What do you think's gonna, what do you think's gonna happen? Rick says, well, it does look cleaner out, especially in Wasilla. Yeah, except for the Bosco bombs that are out on the lawn. I've been shoveling those into the woods for the most part, but now it's like, where'd the last one go? I can't find it. I keep waiting for it to go off like a landmine. All right. Guess what we're doing today, says Greg. I imagine you're playing tiddlywinks with manhole covers today. Okay, maybe you're going to be out there. Maybe you're going to go out there and shovel some snow. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Nothing warmer than a hot wood stove, a hot beverage, riding out a niacin flush, says Jeannie. I didn't realize what a niacin flush was for quite a while. I was taking this niacin and I did not realize, I would get this pins and needles like rush through my body. I was totally freaked out, thought something was actually wrong. My doctor had recommended that I take some niacin, but I had been taking slow niacin. And for some reason, I ended up taking another one for a while. And it was like, woof. It was, man, it was freaking me out. A niacin flush is a no joke situation. It just, man, head to toe. What's a Bosco bomb? Well, it's brown and smelly. Let's just put it that way. He does his business, and then I pick it up with a shovel and throw it out in the woods so that nobody has to walk over it. Well, there was one out there that I had my hands full, and I was going to go back out, and I went back out the next day, and I couldn't find it because it was covered with snow. But I guarantee it wasn't frozen solid yet, so I watched where I was walking. That's all I'm saying. You've never taken niacin. Excuse me? Of course I've taken niacin. I've taken slow niacin and regular niacin, slow release and regular. Forecast is 8+ inches for Homer. 8 inches of snow in Homer. Greg is all ready. He's already. He's putting rigs together all day, all night. He's going to go out and beg, borrow, or steal vehicles at this point to push snow around. 8 inches? Oof. Oh. Okay. They need to do a PSA, says Brian, and produce a pamphlet. Maybe they should pass a law preventing you from following too close. Maybe they should pass a law saying you shouldn't follow so close. That's all we need. We just need one more law, Brian. One more law. That'll fix it. That will fix it. It's definitely. Sorry, that my sarcasm font is broken this morning. All right. I'm sorry. It's the biggest thing. Yeah. If you've never taken niacin, it does. I can't remember why I was taking it. I've quit taking it since then. It's been a while, but it definitely, if you don't pay attention, I love the flush, says Jeannie. You're alive. Yeah, I thought I was dying. I thought, man, this pins and needles things from my head to my toes through my fingers, all hot and flustered. And I'm like, is this what dying feels like? I'm not sure. It's a little crazy. It makes me a little nervous, especially when I was doing it. Happened live while I was on the air one day, and I was like, hello. All right, here we go. We're jumping back on the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Do it. Like, share, follow. Here we go. Let's get to it. Okay, welcome back. The Michael Duke Show. The chat room is so random. The chat room is so random this morning. Was it Monty Python who did the one more thin? Yes, and it wasn't one more thin biscuit. It was one more thin wafer. I could take it. One more thin and a bucket. Anyway, that's Monty Python. Yeah, absolutely Monty Python. All right, welcome back to the program. Thank you for coming on board, and let's take a crack at everything that's going on around here. I'm sorry, I'm fascinated by the direction that the chat room has taken this morning. We talked about everything from Bosco bombs to Nias in Flushing. It was a busy 5 minutes while you guys were out there doing your thing. Let me go back over to talk about some of the other stuff that's going on around the state of Alaska right now. This is something that'll have some interesting ramifications in the state if, and I use a heavy if it goes through. James Brooks writes about it over at the Alaska Beacon. After seeking an appeal seeking to defend Governor Dunleavy's proposed union dues collection plan will be considered by the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, no sooner than December. On Monday, attorneys representing the state's largest public employee union filed documents urging the High Court to turn down the state's request that they re-examine an Alaska Supreme Court decision that rejected the plan. Back in 2019, the Dunleavy administration attempted to unilaterally change the rules for public employee membership, saying that the Janus decision from 2018 requires employees to opt into their union membership annually instead of opting out. It was not an automatic opt-in thing, which, I'll be honest with you, I think makes a lot of sense. Now, of course, none of the unions want that. All they want is for the second that you sign the dotted line that you're working for the gov, is they want to, government, not the governor, but the government, is that they want to get that money. They want to get that immediate. You have to opt out. If you want out of the union, you've got to opt out. You're in, baby, whether you want to or you hold the pen, we'll move the paper. And with Janus, the Supreme Court had said that that's, that they shouldn't be forced. Unions opposed that interpretation, and surprise, surprise, the Alaska Supreme Court rejected the state's argument in May, concluding that the state's interpretation of Janus was incorrect. Dunleavy's administration appealed the state court decision to the Supreme Court in August. Now, they receive hundreds of appeal requests every year, but they only take up a relative handful of them. And before deciding whether to consider a case, the justices receive written arguments for and against. And that written process is almost complete. The state will have one final round of written arguments before the case documents are presented to the High Court, which will happen, or is expected to happen, I guess I should say, in December. Politically conservative organizations, including the Buckeye Institute, the National Right to Work League, the Legal Defense Foundation, the Goldwater Institute. Just a whole plethora have filed documents submitting support for the state's case. Those organizations, plus the state of Kansas, which has also submitted documents in support of Alaska, are hoping that the court will reinterpret its 2018 case and effectively put new restrictions on public employee unions, which I think James is... I think his I think his blue card is showing at that point, because I don't think they're looking for the interpretation as they're looking more for clarification. The Supreme Court ruled that unions could not automatically collect so-called fair share fees from workers who benefited from union contracts but declined to formally join the union. I think what they're looking for is that the clarification on forced union membership, that you had to opt in early, immediately. And then if you wanted out, you had to say you wanted out, but you had to know what you didn't know. Now, remember last week we were talking about all these people crying about the fact that they had money taken out of their retirement because they had these high-speed, management options where they could, had somebody at their beck and call to help them manage their retirements. And for 17 years, many of these people didn't even bother to look to see that those fees were coming out. So could you imagine how they wouldn't even know that they were union members or didn't have to be? Because the union look, there's no benefit. The union has no, that you're in, baby. And then, but they said, well, wait, do I not have a choice? Oh, you have a choice, but we just don't have to tell you about it. So you're in, and if you want out, you can be out, but here's all the reasons why you shouldn't want to get out. And then just put the arm block on them. You know what I mean? Just twist their arm behind their back as to why you shouldn't not join. And you're already a member, so why would you want to do I mean, can't you see it? Can't you see it? Conservative thinkers have argued that the decision has implication for union members as well, but judges have generally dismissed those arguments. That was talking about the fair share fees. And the U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly declined to take up the Janus case again. It has denied more than a dozen prior appeals from lower courts on the same issues. And attorneys representing the Alaska unions concluded this week that there have been no developments since those denials that would make the issue worthy of this court's review. I mean, nothing like a little flattery. Nothing is worthy of you, my great lord. We should not have you. You should not come down off your mountain and just trouble yourself with these miserable peasants who would love to just sit down there, my lord. We will bring you your slippers and your pipe, and you will be fine. Do not trouble yourself. I mean, you can see it already, right? I just love it. Sometimes it would not make it worthy of this court's review. So crack myself up. Did a voice and gave myself a coughing jag. All right. So that is, we'll know more in December on that, whether or not that's going to be. But I just, again, I love the new. They were hoping the Supreme Court. Here's the argument. They were hoping that the Supreme Court will reinterpret the 2018 case and effectively put new restrictions on public employee unions. Well, again, I think the idea that people should, in fairness, should be able to opt in instead of opt out, instead of having automatically having an opt in. And we talked about this last week about the opt in thing. There was an actual big nationwide case, and I want to say it was AT&T. Maybe it was MCI. Or maybe it was AT&T. Again, there's a big case about where they automatically were opting in their customers. If you signed up for service, you were automatically opted in. You had no idea about it, and there were fees associated with it. And it became a big national deal. I remember that, where they basically, the court said, you can't just automatically opt somebody in just because they want to use your service and you want to opt them in on this ancillary thing, which costs extra money. You just can't do that. And that was, the courts actually got involved and there was a major brouhaha about it. I'll have to go back and Google it now, but that was part of the deal, was that they were automatically opting people in. Just like the unions in the state of Alaska do. If you go to work for the government, they opt you into the union, and it's your job to then extricate yourself from that. Well, you're brand new, you're doing all the things. It's your job to do that instead of just saying, oh, you want to join us? Come on and join. I mean, if they are that attractive, if the things that they do are that great, if the benefits outweigh the costs and all the other things, then they should be attractive enough that anybody who joins, anybody who becomes a government employee should go, oh my God, I've got to become a union member right now. Right? I mean, if the free market is the free market and everything else, and it is that attractive, then they should be busting down the door to get in and join your club. But when you have to deceive them and inveigle them and sneak it in as part of their as part of their first day on the job kind of thing, and make it so you make it very difficult for anybody to opt out and not be part of your club, well, that, again, must not be that great a deal then, is it? Must not be that great. So anyway, we'll know in December what happens with that and where things go from there. All right. 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150. If you would like to sound off this morning, I suppose I turned the phone lines on and then forgot to tell you what the phone number was. Not that many of you don't know already, but we'd love to hear what you guys have to say. You want to sound off of what's going on. This final segment that we've got coming up here this morning, we're going to be talking about what's going on in the Mat-Su and what's happening there with the election coming up tomorrow, starting at 7 a.m. Of course, the early voting is still going on today. If you want to be part of it, you can go over there and do that. It is important that we get out the vote. So if you're listening here in the South Central area and in the Mat-Su area, you may want to go get a friend and take them to the polls with you. Friend, coworker, neighbor, whatever. Let's get it done because tomorrow is going to be an important day to see if we can hold on to the redness that is the Mat-Su. We'll talk about that here on the other side of this break. All right. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thing and radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Hey, Bosco. You're blocking the light, buddy. You're blocking the light. Come on. Come on. There you go. There you go. I don't know why. The light, it doesn't even put off any heat. It's like an LED light, but he just likes to sit right in front of it and do his thing, which is nothing, which is just to lay down in front of it and block all the light behind me. Isn't that right, buddy? Isn't that right, buddy? Yes, who's a good dog? Who's a good dog? Bosco's a good dog. Okay. All right, down. Come on, get down. Okay. Sorry. Puppy moment. It was a... Okay. I thought he was going to walk in front of the light again. I'd be like, damn, dude. All right, let me go back to the chat room to see what you guys are talking about. Okay. Pay fealty to the king or you will be victimized by the media dogs. Good morning. I broke open my canned smoked jalapeno. Whoa. What? My canned smoked jalapeno salmon yesterday. All I can say is decadent. Oh, man. We used to do salsa salmon, and that's where you can salmon with a scoop of your favorite salsa. And then when it came out, you mash it all up. It was, oh, God. Oh, man. That's all I could say. Just delicious. Everybody wants to see Bosco. That dog is heavy, guys. You have no idea. Where are you again? Where'd you go? Oh, he's right behind my chair. Right behind my chair. Anyway, I can't pick him up right now because he's right behind my chair. Okay. Was seeing the shadows on the wall. It was creepy till I remembered Bosco. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's exactly it, right? It's like, you think it's the monsters on the wall, and then you realize it's the dog. It's the dog. It is the dog, and he is he's pretty amazing. I got to be honest with you. He's pretty amazing pup. I am super blessed. Super blessed. Again, went to Fairbanks for one thing, came back with a dog. Was not expecting that. I would not have in a million years have expected that. Not a million. Hey, and I got my ice maker to work again in my fridge. Because of water filters. Water filters in a fridge. I mean, that's, no hot topic for today. I'm talking about water filters and fridges and dog poo. What do you want to know? What do you want to know? This is not the show for you. Pay no attention to the show. This is not the show for you. He's 3 years old. He's 3 years old, according to my friends who had him. They got him when he was just about 6 months old, and it's been just about 3 years now. So he's 3.5 years old. Yeah, water filters cost. I mean, who knew? You're supposed to replace it every 3 to 6 months, and it's $50 for that water filter. And I've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then the other day, the ice maker stopped working, and I was like, oh, damn it. And so I'm like, I knew exactly why it stopped making ice is because I've been ignoring the water filter light for like 3 months. So I finally went down there and got it. And I was like, okay, $50 for a water filter. Oh. Anthony says, so I got lost in the new quadruple double helix roundabout entrance in front of Fort Wainwright last night. I entered it. Wait a second. I entered it and popped out somewhere randomly in Fairbanks like I entered the Bermuda Triangle. Is this an intended design? It was so funny because the weekend that I was there, they shut down that entire intersection. You could not go on that side of town. And I was like, they apparently knew that if I went in there, I would get completely, totally lost. That would be crazy. Just crazy. Oof, man. The lag is real. Ice Tray says, Jeannie, just saying, oh, come on. I have an ice maker for a reason, Jeannie. Brian says, yep, it's a maintainable item that I forget about. I buy a pair and then promptly misplace one. I mean, you don't want to, they're $50 a piece. You don't be misplacing that thing. It's solid gold. It's solid freaking gold. Yeah. Oof, man. Okay. You would check out Amazon for your water filter. We found ours for our refrigerators cheaper there, says Chris. Yeah. I mean, I suppose, but then I would have to admit that I want my fridge to tell me what to do. And I just don't like that. You can't tell me what to do. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. My God, it must be a Monday. I mean, we are having the most random conversations in the chat room today. Talking about my high speed. I bought Terry a new refrigerator last Christmas before last. So it's a year and a half, almost 2 years old now. And I had no idea at the time that the thing took water filters that you had to put into it that cost $50 a piece. And you're supposed to replace them every 3 months. 6 on the outside. It's $200 a year in water filters for my refrigerator. And I looked at the light and I looked at the fridge and I said, you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. And finally, my ice maker quit working and I'm like, all right, fine. I mean, I've had it for 2 years and this is the second water filter I've replaced in 2 years. So I guess I'm still winning, considering I'm supposed to change it quarterly or bi-yearly or whatever. But $50 for, I mean, what is it made of? 100% pure unobtainium? I mean, come on. It's the size of a little milk jug. I mean, it's this little teeny tiny filter. $50. Oh, man. Oh. Anyway, welcome back to the program. Good morning. How are you? I mean, it is Monday. It's just to give you guys some behind the scenes. I woke up this morning and I was on my phone doing some stuff, reading some stories, puttering around, getting ready. Went into the studio and realized that there was no internet at the house. That I'd been working on my phone and my phone had been working on 5G the whole time. I didn't realize that I had no internet at the house, which is kind of important, because everything goes to all the radio stations via the internet. It's a voice over IP codec thing. Anyway, so then I scrambled around for 25 minutes trying to get the internet back up at the house. And just before the show started, we did it. It's, woof, there you go. So that was how my Monday started. And so that's kind of how we're at. That's where we're at this morning. That's, should be, one of those things. It's a Monday. Tomorrow, though, is Election Day in the Matsu. Nowhere else, apparently, because nobody else can decide where to have their freaking elections, right? It's October. No, it's April. No, it's November. It's, whatever. Matsu aligned all their municipal elections for the borough, not for the cities, because we just had the city elections in the Matsu in October. And tomorrow is going to be the big day for the Matsu borough. So, Election Day, it's important. Get out there and vote. What do we got? Assembly seats, school board seats, and I believe there is probably I believe that there is probably a slew of bond issues that are available that are going to be part and parcel of that whole deal right now. I can tell you right now. Let's see. Well, you should have been registered to vote already. Where is the voting locate? Where's not the election calendar? I want to see. Okay. So you got the election, you got propositions, proposition number 1. So you've got proposition number 1 for the November 7th regular ballot proposition, which is a ordinance relating to the construction, addition, improvements, betterments, repair, reconstruction, acquisition of public roads and pathways and facilities related to the Matsu Borough, together with all the necessary equipment and transportation facilities, including improving school access and the acquisition of land rights and connect. This is the multi-million-dollar one where they're going to try and do all these road improvements at these schools, including the one, what was this? This is the one that's got like the, what is it, $6 million? No, $3.5 million. $3.5 million. No, yeah, it is $6 million right here. Burma Road upgrades, $3 million for the Museum Drive extension, $3.2 million for the King Arthur Drive reconstructions, the $2.6 million for the Yoder Road reconstruction, it's just millions of dollars for all these road projects that are going on. Now, not that I'm against road projects. Don't get me wrong, but I have some questions. $9.19 million for Shaw Elementary School. School site traffic and safety improvements. How much did the school cost when it was built? $26 million, and they have to do another $9.19 million in improvements for the school. $9 million for a single school. That's the one I was thinking of. It is just absolute madness. I'll be voting no on the $38.1 million bond package. Because I'm contrary in that way. Because just like my refrigerator, you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me what to do. And of course, but there it all is right there. Again, $9.1 million, almost $9.2 million for a single project at Shaw Elementary School. School site traffic and safety improvements. Now, I love how they break it down, though. The annual cost to the taxpayer per $100,000 of assessed value is only $5.48. We just spread the pain equally, so everyone feels it. It's no big deal. It's only $5.50. What do you care? Except for the fact, of course, that you've indebted your property for it, so don't worry about it. The whole package only costs $22.76 for $100,000 worth of assessment. So if your house is $400,000, don't worry. You're less than $100 in new taxes. Less than $100 spread out over 20 years. God, I hate bonds. They have their place. Don't get me wrong, especially when you're building something new. And I always admired the people of the Matsu and specifically around Wasilla. They built the Menard Sports Center, and then they built that new library, and they did it all with a 2% tax. And they sunset it. So as soon as everything was paid for, they turned the tax off, which was just great. I remember Bert Cottle, who was mayor at the time, he's like, oh, I've got another project that I want to use this to. And people are like, nope. And they shut it off. They're like, nope, no soup for you. No more for you. Yeah. So anyway, this is the one big bond project that I know is on the deal, but it absolutely astonishing. The $9 million for the one thing. So we've got a variety of candidates here. Running unopposed, Rob Yunt is running for Borough Assembly in District 4. In District 5, you have two candidates. You've got Bill Campbell against the incumbent Moki 2. Who is, again, Big Lake area out towards this way. In District 6, you've got a four-way race in District 6. Dmitry Fonov is the current assembly member. You've got Kirby Coleman, Jackson Abney, and Stafford Glanshin, all running for Assembly District 6. So it's a four-way. I don't know. I'm voting for Dmitry. I actually don't think I'm in his district, but I would be voting for Dmitry if I was in that district. I'm in District 5, I think. And then, of course, we've got the school board, the Kathy McCullum, who we talked to late last week, with the newcomer Sydney Zoyus, who is running for election, and then Ole Larson against the conservative Diane Scheib. No, she's not conservative, but that's what she's telling people. So those are all the races that are going on. It doesn't seem like it's doesn't seem like much, but I think it is. These are the things you need to remember. Who's been doing a good job for you? Who's been taking care of things? Especially those school board seats. The whole, the fact that there's so much money being pumped into all of these different races, whether directly to the candidates or whether through independent expenditures, PAC money or independent expenditure groups. That should tell you all you need to know about what's going on and who you should be paying attention to in those regards. But get out and vote. Grab somebody, take a friend. If you live in the Matsu, take a coworker, go do the voting thing at lunch, get it all done. And I mean, if you want my recommendations, I would vote no on the bond issue because $38 million bond package, $9 million of it is for that one school improvement. The other ones I could probably live with. I mean, we're talking about, improvements to different roads around the communities and the neighborhoods and the areas, pavement rehabilitation, Bogart to Selden, inner and outer Springer Loop workings and pathways. I mean, I could see some of this stuff, but again, $9 million of that going to school site traffic and safety improvements for Shaw Elementary School. I mean, you've got something that costs a third of the cost of the overall, how much it costs to build the school. You're going to now do all this other stuff to it. I mean, was it something broken? Something broken in that? That's what I would be looking at anyway. So anyway, get out there, go vote. Absentee, early voting, there's all kind. Just go to matsu.gov, matsu.gov.us/elections. matsu.gov.us/elections. If you want to figure out where all this stuff is and take a look at everything and the voter pamphlet and everything else. I don't think I've seen a voter pamphlet. I guess I should be asking the same question. Did they do the same thing that they did down in the Kenai, where they basically just stopped mailing out the voter pamphlet? Is that what, just to save some money? So you got to go look it up. I don't know. All right. We have got more coming up. Hour 2 is dead ahead. It's going to be Myers Monday. Robb Myers is our guest. It's going to be fun stuff. We will be back with more. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We will return with more right after this. Oh, Terry said she got her voter pamphlet. I apparently didn't, or maybe my wife just didn't bother to give it to me. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the kids didn't. Whatever. I'm sure that there was a loose communication somewhere between my my mailbox and my stack of mail that ends up on my end table. Okay. Let's try and keep the conservatives in the MSBSD. Yes, let's try to do that. Wow, everything just got super laggy. All right, so here's, you guys know what's going to happen here. I'm about to mash the refresh button, and you're going to see the blue screen for 15, 20 seconds, and Robb Myers is going to hang out in the green room. He doesn't have to go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Here we go. Look at that. Look at that. All right. Okay. That seems to be. Oh, look at that! Everything got a little less laggy. That's very nice. Okay, Robb Myers is my guest. We're going to get to him here in just a second. Never received a voter pamphlet, said Politidic, deemed not worthy. Alaska DOT wants $404 million to upgrade bridges in the Fairbanks borough to accommodate the one trucks. The one trucks? Currently, the trucks must bypass the flood project and Chena Hot Springs Road bridges and will avoid all others by going through town via Pegger and Johansson. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's see what the man himself has to say about that. Let's see what he's got going on. Good morning, Mr. Myers. Sure. Look at you. What are you? That's like you're hanging out this morning. You ready to go?
Morning, Michael. How you doing?
Good. Good. How's life treating you?
Well, back to the grindstone. As you may notice, I am on location this morning.
I can see that you're on location in lovely downtown somewhere or other.
Lovely downtown mile 305 Dalton Highway.
Nice. Absolutely. Are you actually have pretty good internet for being out on the Dalton Highway? There's no complaints there.
You know, they've AT&T's done some upgrades up here over the last few years. When I first started driving this road about 5 years ago, I would lose internet at the top of Wickersham Dome, and then I'd pick it up again about 20 miles outside of Dead Horse. And since then, AT&T has added cell towers at pump stations 2, 3, and 4, and at Coldfoot. And so I'm about 6-7 miles from pump station 3 right now. Nice.
All right. Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Lots of good stuff with your latest video. I got a chance to sneak in and sneak a peek at it this morning before we got going, and we're going to go over that here pretty good, talking about the economy and what a problem it is. And you make some kind of spooky points. I'll be honest with you. There's some scary stuff in there when you start thinking about what's going on with the overall economy. And you make some points, of course, highlighted by some of the charts, which I will pull up as we go through it as well. So be ready for that.
You bet. Ready to go?
Okay. All right. I'm going to pull him back into the green room here for just a minute here while I go back through, make sure that do you have to put the Duke's show? Kevin is asking Rob, do you have to put the Duke show in your logbook? That's a question. Do you have to put the Duke show in your logbook? It says something that the guest in the ass end of nowhere somehow has a better internet connection than GCI provides in the town where the show is being broadcast from. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty. I was kind of swearing a blue streak this morning over all of that. I'll be honest with you. I was not a happy man this morning. Let's just put it that way. I was not a happy camper this morning as I was struggling to try and get the internet back on the program. All right, let me see. I'm doing here. I forgot to pull the pictures here. Let me get that real quick so that I can show these graphs that Rob had in his presentation that he did on this video. Let me excuse me while I whip this out. There we go. Okay. All right. So now we will be back and ready to go with Rob here in just a hot. Whoops. That's not what I wanted. That's what I wanted right there. Okay. So we'll have that here with Rob here in just a moment, and we'll be ready to go. All right, my friends, please like and share the show, like and follow the show page, do all the stuff that you've got going on there. and be ready for another great one with Robb Myers for Myers Monday here on the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free, thinking radio. Here we go. Let's do this thing.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find links to everything, including the podcast, the audio-only live stream, social media sites where we simulcast the radio show, and so much more. But let's get right to it here in hour 2 this morning. We're going to be talking with State Senator Robb Myers, who is up for what we lovingly like to call Myers Monday. He is reporting to us today from an undisclosed secret location at mile 305 of the Dalton Highway, which I guess means I just disclosed it. I could tell you, but then now I have to kill everyone because I told everyone where you're at. He's up on the road right now doing some work, has pulled over for a coffee break and sit down and talk with us about his latest video, which if you've been following on his website or on his Facebook page at Myers for Alaska on Facebook, he's been doing a video series to talk about the PFD, the economy, and all these other things. His latest one is entitled, So, How Screwed Up Is Our Economy Exactly? And oh, baby, does he give it to us in no uncertain terms. You thought a Brad Keithley beatdown was bad. Wait till you watch this video with Robb Myers. He joins us right now. Good morning, sir. How are you doing, my friend?
Oh, we're doing okay, Michael. Just kind of waking up like everybody else.
Yeah, well, you're 300 miles away. I hope you're awake now and ready to go, getting everything warmed up and ready to head up off the trail. We appreciate you coming on and joining us this morning, Robb. So let's get started here. How bad is the economy in the state of Alaska? And let's get down into some nitty-gritty details, because you and I have talked about it a lot, the disconnect between the public and the private economy, how some people just seems to just be ambivalent or, willfully ignorant about what's going on. Give me your thoughts.
Right. So the last time we talked, I just released my first video. And one of the pieces that I mentioned in there was that if you look at our economy as a whole and you just separate out government, state government, that's about 20% of our economy. Then you separate out the oil and gas industry, and that's about another 20% of our economy. And that's not counting for any of the trickle-down effects. And so with this latest video, I started going into some more detail. And I said, okay, what other sectors of the economy do we have? Because we talk all the time about, mining and fishing and tourism and all this sort of stuff that Alaska has going for it. And I said, okay, so let's actually look at that and see where things are. And, so I said, well, all right, let's take the oil and gas and mining off the top. Now, unfortunately, the feds put oil and gas and mining together when they collect the data. And so that makes it difficult to separate them out. But let's just take that one off the top because it is so large by itself that it kind of overshadows everything. And so that one's gone from that graph that you've got there. But then looking at the next three largest sectors in the private economy there, you'd say, oh, okay, well, we got a few things that are growing. And then until you start to understand why they're growing and you realize that actually we're in worse shape. So that very top line there, that's transportation. And, well, I know a little something about transportation. That, it's what I'm doing right now. Transportation in Alaska, of course, is extremely important, but it's also heavily tied to the oil sector. And you can see that with where the peaks and the valleys are in that line on transportation there. And so, yes, it's growing. But it's still heavily tied back to that one overarching industry, which is oil. It's also something to keep in mind that transportation doesn't just mean trucks and trains and airplanes. It also includes the pipeline. And the pipeline, of course, I want to keep that filled just as much as the next person. But I also recognize that one reason that transportation line is going up is because we're talking about the costs of operating the pipeline. And as the pipe continues to get older, those costs go up. And the line is going up, but let's not kid ourselves and say that increased costs mean better economic activity. No, we're not actually producing something new. We're just spending more money to maintain what we have.
Right, spinning our wheels as that goes.
Right. And is it necessary? Yes. But is it actually getting us anywhere? Well, not really. The next line down that you see there, that's real estate. And you expect in a good economy, you expect real estate to be going up because you have more transactions. The transactions have higher value. This is a normal thing. But then you start to examine what's actually going on in the real estate market in Alaska. And you realize that a lot of that is actually not the sales. It's actually rents and leases. And so effectively what that real estate line is telling us is that housing in Alaska is getting more expensive, which, again, this is not necessarily good news. The numbers may be going up, but that's not really helpful. And, there's a lot of that is Anchorage, since that's, almost half of the market right there, half the population. But you see the same problem around the state. There's a lot of reasons for it, and I don't want to get into all the reasons for it, but the short version is real estate is going up because we don't have enough housing, and the housing we do have is getting more expensive. So, again, not exactly a bright spot. The next line down with a nice steady increase, except for a little dip in COVID there, that's healthcare. Healthcare has a lot of great jobs. If you're looking for a career, if you're in your, just getting out of high school or just getting out of college, healthcare is a great career. You can make some good money. There's a lot of demand around the state, around the country. But if you're talking about it as an economic driver, that again is it's not exactly a bright spot because, again, kind of like spending money with the pipeline, you're spending money to maintain effectively. Now, in this case, instead of maintaining a piece of infrastructure, we're maintaining people's lives, which is important. But, we have to understand exactly what we're buying with our money there. We also have to remember that Alaska has the most expensive healthcare in the country, which means that the prices are going up, but things aren't necessarily getting better. And, and you got to remember that every dollar that you spend in healthcare is a dollar that could have been spent elsewhere in the private economy, invested elsewhere to grow something else. So if we could keep our healthcare expenses under control, we'd be in a whole lot better place in our economy to begin with. Second thing you have to realize about healthcare is that something along the lines of 80% of the healthcare in Alaska is funded by government in some way, shape, or form. Could be federal, state employee health plans, Medicare, Medicaid, IHS, the VA, TRICARE, all of these different pieces of government-funded healthcare. And so a lot of what that line is showing us with healthcare going up is, again, just government spending going up. Again, that does not necessarily mean that the private economy is doing well. And right. So the things that look good probably are not that good of an indication of what is going on in our economy. So, we're in a world of hurt right now, Michael.
Yeah, no, and for those of you who don't know what we're talking about here with the graphs and everything, I'm posting these graphs up on the Facebook feed this morning. If you want to go out and take a look at them later, you could take a look at these. But again, we're talking about Alaska private industry's gross domestic product and the fact that healthcare and social assistance is the third largest line for private industry gross domestic product. Again, just goes back to show what we've talked about in the past, where you now have large portions of the private sector that are basically serving and servicing strictly government interests at this point, in a lot of ways. And that just kind of shows you some of the problems here. And this is just, again, gross domestic product. But you move on and take this even further and take a look at the volatility of things as well.
Yeah, we are so heavily dependent on those two main industries of oil and government. And I mean, obviously, we know oil goes up and down like crazy. We're watching those numbers right now. I haven't seen the prices yet this morning, but I get an email every weekday about what the oil prices are doing. And they've been, they spiked up a couple of months ago and everybody said, oh, we're going to have a couple extra $1 billion next year. And now they're back in the downward slide. And we ran through this same thing about a year and a half, 2 years ago, where, oil prices spiked at 105 or something like that after Russia invaded Ukraine. And we said, great, we're going to have a ton of money. And then by the time we came back for the next session in January, oil prices were back in the 70s. And you've got the graph up there showing what oil has done in the state over the last about not quite 20 years now. And, you got to remember that our production has been on a slow, steady decline that entire time period. So that entire volatility there has just been due to oil price. And, the state of Alaska on a worldwide scale, the state of Alaska is a relatively small player. So we don't really control the price. That's done by the Saudis, the frackers down in Texas, the Russians, a couple of other larger players around the world. And, we're kind of along for the ride there. And then you've got government in there as well. And government tries to be, somewhat steady. For an operating budget, you kind of have to be. But, we end up with wild swings there too, based on, at a minimum based on oil earnings, and now it's based on, to some extent, the swings of the permanent fund. And so what do we do with those wild swings? Well, occasionally we've done the smart thing and put some money away. In 2013, we had that $3 billion down payment into the PERS and TERS system to take care of some of that liability. That was a smart move. But more often what we do is we take a bunch of that money and we shove it into a capital budget. And then you sit there and go, all right, well, great. We just spent some money to build infrastructure in our state, until you, again, sit back and realize that building infrastructure does not necessarily mean you're doing a whole lot other than providing jobs for some construction workers for a couple of summers. Because, again, our state has nothing set up to show, all right, what's going to be a good investment, what's not going to be a good investment. And if your goal is just to grow the economy or to put dollars into the economy, honestly, the capital budget is almost the worst way you can do that, because so much of it immediately turns around and leaves state for building materials and stuff that we don't produce here. So that for every $1,000 that we put into the capital budget, something like 500 or 600 of it is what gets into the local economy, and the rest of it's immediately leaving state. So it's again, we're back to this kind of two-trick pony that we've got. We've got oil and we have government, and until we break that cycle, we're going to continue to be in a world of hurt.
Robb Myers is our guest. We're talking with him about what is the actual state of the economy here in the state of Alaska. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. We've got to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue this discussion. Again, you can check out his latest video over on Facebook. Just look for Myers for Alaska on Facebook, and you can find his latest video posted last Wednesday talking about just how bad is our economy screwed up. I mean, how bad is it? He'll continue to disseminate that and dissect it for us here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're back with more here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Robb Myers, our guest here on the program, as we go through and talking about the latest on the economy. I mean, this is all... This whole talk about with us for just a second here, Rob, the genesis of this video series. What made you think that, what made you think to put together this video series? What's the underlying tone here?
Well, so the underlying tone, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, the underlying message is that when it comes to Alaska's economy, we as individuals don't matter. What really matters in our economy is the decision makers down in Juneau, and to a lesser extent, the decision makers in the large multinationals that come up here to do a resource extraction. And so that it really leaves you and I as individuals out in the dust. And, we see the results of that when people go try to talk to their legislators and they say, oh, well, dude, this is what you need to be doing. This is why I voted for you. And the legislators turn around and go, well, you just don't understand. Well, no, they do understand from a certain perspective that our economy is constructed in such a way that the legislators are the ones that make decisions. And that's a screwed up state for our economy. Now, I started this. You can credit my wife with a good chunk of this because I got home from session this year and I started to talk to her a little bit about the background of what's going on, about what's going on with the push for the POMV. We've seen some more stuff about that in the news over the last few months, wanting that constitutional amendment. And I explain a lot of the backstory to her, and she looks at me with wide eyes and she says, you need to do this exactly what you just told me and put it in a video and put it online. And I said, that's not a bad idea. And what she and I were talking about is going to come up here in another week or two in regard to the permanent fund structure and how that is contributing to our government and things like that. And then, what's happening with the dividends specifically. But I expanded out to that and I said, there's a lot more background to know here of what's going on. And it's really easy if you're not in it on a daily basis, it's really easy to miss the big picture of what's going on here. And, everybody picks up on little bits and pieces here and there. We all know that, oil prices spike and Alaska gets a big infusion of cash, for example. We know about the travails with the dividend, for example. But, I thought it was going to be really worthwhile to just take all of those pieces and tie them all together for everybody and put that out in the public and say, look, guys, here's the big picture about what's going on. We're not fighting little individual battles here and there over oil and the economy and the permanent fund and, a couple, three other things, business regulations, things like that. No. It's all really different facets of the same battle all going on. And this is the structure that we've had in our government for the last, 50-ish years. And that's why we're in this mess. We're not fixing problems that have been here since Walker. We're fixing problems that have been here since the 1960s. And that's why it's so hard. We're trying to dig out from under all of that mess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big thing is that we keep fighting a lot of the same. We're fighting a lot of the same battles over and over and over again. We're never getting a true resolution to a lot of these problems, and we need to continue to point out. And what you're doing is basically dissecting it to take all the detritus off the top, so we could see exactly what the underlying problem is, which I think is an important component to what we need to do. We need to look at this and analyze it and take action on it. That's the thing. The plan without the action, everything else doesn't matter. We can look at it, we can talk about it, but we've got to get to the action part of it. Robb Myers is our guest. We're going to continue here in just a second. We're going to continue with him here. Please like and share and follow. Like and share wherever you are and from whatever platform you're watching on. Let's get back to it here. Here we go. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Let's do it. All right, we're continuing now. State Senator Robb Myers is our guest. We're talking about his latest video on the state of the economy. And before we went to break, we were just talking about the highest, the different sectors and where the biggest GDP was and what private sector industries were actually getting it. But, Rob continues to have to take out the oil industry and the government, which are the two biggest industries, unfortunately. And while you can take him out for the graphing so that you could see it, it does have an effect on everything else, and you can't just eliminate it from the formula. Rob, I'll let you continue here on your discussion.
Right. You've got government and oil directly contributing to about 40% of the economy, and indirectly you're looking at probably, I've seen estimates anywhere between 50 and 80%, and that gets harder to tease out in the numbers. You can tell it's up there a ways when you start to realize what each sector of the economy means. But this is the problem that we get into down in Juneau is, because oil and government are such large sectors of our economy, that the thinking starts to get around Juneau that, well, cutting the budget means cutting the economy. We don't want to cut the economy, right? And it's partially a public perception problem that we're in here, because we've had so many of these kind of large projects coming out of the oil industry and some other related things. Let's put Willow out there, or you go back a little further and the state built the Parks Highway. These large projects that meant so much to the economy at the time, and for some of them meaning so much going forward too, that now our public perception is warped. We've got all this oil money, so we have to be looking for the next big thing. And the next big thing is fine if it's done and managed properly, and that's not always the case around this state. But the problem is that if all you're ever doing is looking for the next big thing, you're missing all of the little pieces along the way. If you look around the country, something along the lines of 60% of the job growth around the country is just small businesses hiring 1 or 2 or 3 people at a time. It's not some large business coming into an area. It's not some big construction project. It's not that, those things are nice, but those are the pinnacle of the pyramid. That's not the base of it. That's not the body of it. The body of an economy is small little incremental gains here and there, sustained over time. And
right. Well, isn't the number something like across the country, something like 85% of jobs are provided by small business and entrepreneurs?
There we go, 85%. Yeah, it's been a while since I went to look for that number, so I forgot. But that little bits and pieces of small business growth is really what drives an economy in the long run. And some of these big projects, it's like, oh, well, you get to a point where the economy is now ready for it. And in Alaska, we've had so many instances of we try to force it, thinking that the big thing is going to drive everything else, when in reality, most of the time it's the other way around, that everything else is kind of moving forward and it hits a stopping point until the big project gets built, and then that's, kind of what releases the floodgates. But if you're not to that point yet and you go build that big project, you don't get much in the way of returns from it. So, that's the problem. One of the problems that we're facing is we've had so much focus on where we're going to build $1 billion construction project, or an oil company is going to put $3 billion into this project on the slope, or we're going to invest another $500 million in education, or something along these lines, and thinking that that's what's going to push us forward. And we have to change that mindset. And part of changing that mindset actually then goes back to the dividend, because when you have all of that natural resource wealth and you have all of that financial wealth from the permanent fund, then concentrated in the government, that works people's thinking. Because then somebody says, okay, in order to grow my business, in order to grow my livelihood, what's the easiest way for me to do that? Well, the government's got most of the money, so I'm going to go find a way to serve the government. If you put that money back into individuals' hands, what does somebody say? Well, the best way for me to make a living is to serve my neighbors. It's to provide a valuable product or service that they respond to, not, oh, how well can I lobby for a contract? And that's the difference that we're looking at here is that underlying change in the relationship from a vertical relationship with the government to a horizontal relationship with your friends and your neighbors in your community or across the state. That's what's going to grow an economy in the long run. And if we don't come to grips with that, we are going to continue to be sitting here wondering, well, what are we doing wrong?
Well, this goes back again to the to the discussion that we had late last week, where we were talking about the dependency, right? I mean, this is a dependency state. We've created, we are living in it right now. They're either dependent on the one side, on the social network, the social welfare network, the safety net. Again, talking about 30% of our citizens being on Medicaid or some form of welfare in the state of Alaska. And on the other side, you're talking about the corporate cronyism, the dependency state of where you've built whole industries that do nothing but serve government, where they built their entire business model around servicing government contracts and things like that. Meanwhile, ignoring any potential to create, some kind of anchor in the private economy to help bolster things up.
Yeah, no, that's 100% accurate. And again, it goes back to that change in perception, that warped thinking that happens when you concentrate all of that wealth into a certain area. It's easy to think about, like, say a small town down in the Rust Belt. When the major employer in the area is let's say the auto parts manufacturer, just as one example. And to see what happens over the course of 30, 40, 50 years as that plant becomes, the largest piece of the economy, and then the plant goes bust, and then the whole town goes bust. Well, Alaska is kind of in that same situation, except instead of the auto parts plant, it's oil and government. And a lot of what we're running into is you got people in government that say, well, you can't cut government because that's such a big part of the economy. We can't cut the economy. And we've got this model going since the 70s where the state takes oil money and distributes it out through the operating budget, the capital budget, and that creates so much of our economy. And so now they're just trying to continue that same model, but instead of oil money, we're going to use permanent fund money. And that's why the dividend is going away, is because you've got people in Juneau, you've got people connected to Juneau, through lobbying efforts and things like that say, well, this is our bread and butter right here, is how the government spreads out the money. If the government's running out of the oil money, well, it's got to get its money from somewhere. And we have to have a change in our thinking to say, no. Your biggest driver in an economy is going to be your individual citizen. Your individual citizen as a worker, your individual citizen as a small business owner. And in order for that to happen, you have to get that capital out from the government's hands back into individuals' hands. And that's what the dividend does for us. Is it's a stand-in for the oil royalties that so many other places like Texas or Pennsylvania or Oklahoma have that become that seed to start other businesses. And we've short-circuited that process here because the state gets all the oil money, and the dividend is the stand-in for that. And once it was finally getting to the point where it was big enough to actually make a difference in terms of things like starting businesses, that's exactly when the state started taking it. And we're going to hamstring ourselves in the long run if we don't come to grips with that.
Well, and this is part of the problem when we talked about, again, taking this money out of the economy. And again, that's when the government, like you said, that's when they saw it and they were like, oh, well, that's a money source that we can grab onto. But nobody's talking about the lost effect on the economy except ICER and those folks. They said this is the worst thing you could do, and they went ahead and did it anyway. And now we're seeing, here we are 6-7 years later, of a growth of government. And I don't even if we did, because people talk about, well, we're not getting enough for our oil. Well, the problem is it's not necessarily a revenue problem. It's a spending problem. If we had gotten more for our oil, if we had gotten another $1 billion a year for our oil, based on the spending habits of the legislature right now, they would have spent all that and then some and probably still taken the PFD. They're not analyzing what that effect is on the private economy. Again, this goes back to people saying, well, the economy's great because the government has the money and the government's spending money. Not that the economy is not doing well because the private economy, as you point out, and I don't think you hit the stats at the beginning of this as you did in the video where you talk about where we are in the country on our actual economy. Those are some eye-opening stats.
Good point. I pulled them out before the show, and I forgot to start with those. From 2011 to 2021, we were the worst performing economy in the country. From 2012 to 2021, we lost 70,000 people moving out of state. And that's as a proportion of the state, that's just under 10%. That's the worst performance in the country as far as a percentage of your population. The only reason that our population stayed about the same is because we had enough births in the state to make up for that. We've got the worst ranking of government debt service to tax revenue. We've got the second most public employees per capita. And our education scores are at the bottom, as you've talked about a lot over the last couple of weeks here. And finally, if you look at job growth as a percentage of your population, we're 38th in the nation. Okay, we're not the bottom, but put that in perspective. The slope is booming. The military has been expanding. It just came out in the paper, late last week, that we just had a record year for tourism. And we can't get out of the bottom third for job growth in the country. We got a problem here.
Well, because again, how much of that is public sector growth versus private sector growth? The oil industry obviously is private sector growth, but the rest of it, especially on the governmental side, that's where the biggest growth is happening. More employees, more things like that. Again, it goes back to that disconnect that we've talked about between the public and the private economy. We're the only state in the union where the state government doesn't have to pay attention to what the private sector is doing, doesn't have to pay attention to how good it's doing or how bad it's doing, because they don't get their revenue from there directly.
Right. And I want to go back a little bit to something you brought up about ICER, pointing out that cutting the dividend is the worst thing you can do for the economy. That's accurate, but that doesn't show the full extent of what the problem is, because what ICER was looking at was consumption. They just said, okay, if you cut the dividend, how much less are people spending? Basically, how much less are you going to be spending on medical bills or on Christmas presents or, the whole 9 yards. How much does it make it harder to make your house payment? Pay your heating bill, things like that. And those are all important. I'm not dismissing those, but I'm saying that is going to miss the more important side, which is the investment side. And the investment that actually grows the economy over the long run. Consumption is what keeps an economy going during the year, but investment is what gets it to grow from year to year. And if you don't have that investment, then you're not just killing your economy for this year. You're killing your economy for 5 or 10 or 15 years down the road. And we had a guy testify at the legislature a couple of years ago that said that the uncertainty and the turmoil that we've had in our state's finances for the last about, let's call it 8 years now, is hurting us to the tune of something in the neighborhood of $500 million of private investment across the state every year. And just think of that $500 million that could have been invested in 2015 and what that would have meant in terms of economic growth and job growth here in 2023 after compounding over the last 8 years. And remember that that's every year. That's not just we lost that 1 year. We're losing that every year because of the volatility and the uncertainty in our state's finances.
And I think you made an important point when you said the dividend was getting to the point to where it would have made a significant difference in business creation and job growth. When you all of a sudden, if you've got a family of 4 and you can gather together $20,000 worth of dividends and to invest and start in a business, again, ICER didn't look at the investment side of it. They just looked at the consumption and spending side of it. That could have made a huge difference in the economy. You got 1 minute here. Oh, I'm sorry, I had you muted.
That's very true. And that's one other thing that got brought up in that same hearing is somebody from the Small Business Center was talking to us and said, if you look at the small businesses across the economy, this is across the nation, not just Alaska, a quarter of your small businesses only take $10,000 or less to get started. And that was a few years ago, so add a little bit more than that for inflation now. But if you can start a quarter of your businesses with $10,000, that's like, 3 dividends if we follow the statutory formula. And we'd be sitting a lot prettier than we are now.
Absolutely. Robb Myers is our guest. We're going to continue with him here in just a second. When we get back, we're going to talk about some of the solutions that Robb sees. Because, again, how screwed are we in this economy? Pretty screwed. I mean, didn't even get a nice drink ahead of time at this point. We're going to continue with Robb Myers here in just a second. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, Robb Myers is our guest here, and I keep seeing, again, I shouldn't feed the trolls, but keep going on and Harold going on and on and on. Oh, we didn't get our money. We didn't get our money. We didn't get our money from the oil companies. We didn't get, again, if we had gotten the billions of dollars, this is not a revenue problem. This is a spending problem. If all those billions of dollars had been there over the years, they still would be spent. I mean, look at the amount of we're spending on government in the various industries, including education and everything else. And we still have piss poor results. We still are not doing well. We still need more, right? I mean, that's always the answer here. So if we had all that, let's say you're right, 100%. Okay, billions of dollars more, we'd still be at this location because it's a spending problem, not a revenue problem.
That's the one half of it. Yes, you're absolutely right. That's one half. But the other half is that production chart that I sent you. And you start to realize that we kind of shot ourselves in the foot because right about the time that we passed ACEs is when at the time we passed ACEs is when the fracking boom started to hit the rest of the country. And you realize that because we jacked our our tax rates up, that we lost out on a good chunk of investment about the time that they were doing all of the experimentation with fracking. And they said, okay, we know this works in principle, but where does it work? How well does it work? That's when we really started to lose ground. And so did we rake in a ton of money in the short term by raising our oil taxes? Yeah, we did. But in long term, we shot ourselves in the foot because we lost out on so much potential future production. And, since we switched off of ACEs in 2014, our production is basically leveled out, and it's actually increased a little bit in the last couple of years for the first time in decades. But, you want to talk about just, we need more money from the oil companies. Well, it might get you more money in the short term, but in the long term, it's going to hurt you.
And I mean, this chart says it all right here. This chart gives you the full rundown of exactly what we're talking about here as far as production and everything else, right, Rob?
Yeah, it does. So what this chart is showing is monthly production comparing Alaska to Texas. And Alaska is orange, Texas is the blue. And you can see that for close to 20 years there, we were basically neck and neck with Texas in terms of production. And then you start seeing about 2006, 2008 there. That is when Texas production finally leveled off. They stopped their decline, and then it started shooting up like crazy about 2009, 2010, as the fracking boom really took off. And we completely missed that entire investment cycle because we were more focused on how much money can we soak out of them in oil taxes.
And again, the tax structure in the state of Alaska is a big factor when oil companies are deciding where to invest.
It really is. I mean, it's not the only thing, keep in mind that we've got, huge distances to cover to get materials up there. You've got harsh climate to deal with, dealing with the winters. If you're down in Texas, you can drill for oil, 12 months a year. Up here, you've got, 4. And, because of the way the climate works. And, you have to take those factors into account too. And as a result, we probably have to set our tax rates a little bit lower than some other places to make up for that, to encourage the oil companies to invest here. And that's, it's the nature of the beast. It's just kind of part of doing business. But if we neglect that, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot for the long run.
Robb Myers is our guest. Sorry, I got to mute Rob every time I talk because it's echoing back. Robb Myers is our guest, reporting to us live from mile 305 of the Dalton Highway, taking a little time out this morning to talk about, what is the state of our economy. And again, I don't know how I could make it any plainer. If we had more money, they would have spent more money at this point. This is, again, we've framed this for years. The legislature and the powers that be have framed this for years as a revenue problem. And my argument has always been that it's a spending problem. Well, what's happened now is that it's been a spending problem long enough that now it is a spending and a revenue problem because they've spent so much that they are dependent on that. They could have nipped this in the bud, a while ago, right, Rob?
No, we could. And we can go into this a little bit more once we get out of the break, but my next video coming out Wednesday is going to talk a little bit about where we've spent money and why it hasn't worked, and the concept of the difference between consumption and investment. And we've gotten the two so confused that we say, well, necessarily if you spend money here with an investment, well, it may be if you do it right, but that's not how we've been doing it. And we've been doing it as consumption. And so it's been wasted effort by and large.
Robb Myers is our guest. Okay, we're going to jump back into it here. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Please like and share. If wherever you are, share the show. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, wherever, if you're listening on the podcast, tell a friend about it. Let's get back to it. Here we go. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do it. All right, we're continuing with Robb Myers. One final segment of the program this morning. We've been talking about his video, which, again, you can find on his Facebook page, Myers for Alaska, Myers, Myers for Alaska. If you want to go over on Facebook and take a look at it, he's got a continuing video series that you can watch there. The latest one talking about how bad is the economy, comparatively. And he hits the numbers. We have been in the last 10 years, from 2011 to 2021, the worstest of the worst. So the question becomes now, Rob, what is the answer? How do we fix this in this regard? How do we, the people, try and push on our legislators to fix this? What does it do?
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about what has been tried, and this is going to be a little bit of a preview of the video coming out here in two more days. Our legislature says, well, we've tried to grow the economy and it hasn't worked. And well, let me give you a couple of examples why. A couple of things that normally should grow an economy that do come from government money are infrastructure and education. Okay. And so those things should, in theory, grow an economy. The problem is that in our state, we have confused investment with consumption. Now, investment is something where you spend money that is going to create more money down the long run. And consumption is just when you spend money and it's gone. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad to spend the money. You just recognize that it's not going to get you anywhere further down the road. So, consumption is your grocery bill. Investment is buying your house, for most people. And the problem is that we got to a place where we started to realize that our state government started to realize that it could effectively bribe the public with the public's money, to use de Tocqueville's words, because we take this money that should go to infrastructure that builds our economy, and we turn it into consumption because it is money that buys jobs for the next couple of years in the construction industry, whether that's road construction or constructing electrical lines or constructing broadband infrastructure, and it's easy for us to say, well, infrastructure is good. But if you don't have a metric to sit down and say this infrastructure is a good investment and this one is not, then it quickly turns into consumption, because investment is something that benefits you 10 or 20 years down the line. But legislators don't care about 10 or 20 years down the line. Legislators care about in 2 years or 4 years, because that's when your next election is. And so what are we going to do to benefit people in 2 years or 4 years? Well, we're going to give them jobs for the summer, next summer, because then come next October, November, then they're thinking about us who gave them that job so that they will vote for us again. And you run into the same problem with education. Education should be an investment in our kids, but when you start examining what's going on psychologically, and you say, we're not focused on outcomes, which is what investment should be focused on, is what outcome is this giving me? But instead, we're focused on how much money are we spending. That should tell you that really what we're focused on is how much are we consuming. And it's almost like education to some extent is a luxury good of, hey, look at me, look at how great I am because I spend so much money on education. The question should be, what is that money buying me? And we're not doing that, unfortunately. And so to get back to your question, the problem is that politicians look at what is politically expedient and not what is economically sound. Your average person has an incentive to look at what is economically sound, because we're the ones that are going to be living with it in 10 or 20 years. As I mentioned the last time we were on here, I was talking to one of my colleagues and I said, well, your plan's only going to work for another 3 or 4 years. And he says, yeah, but by then I'm out of here. So that's your problem. Well, no, we need to be looking 10 or 20 years down the road. And who's better equipped to do that? Is it individuals, or is it people that have to run for re-election to keep their jobs every 2 or 4 years? Well, I'm going to say that it's going to be individuals. And so that's got to be step one, is we have to get that money back into the hands of individuals so that they can invest in the economy. The other flip side of that is we have to put ourselves in a structure where the government has to care about what the private economy is doing and fix that disconnect that we've talked about so many times. Because we already got a major disconnect where the government only has to care about oil because that's the only part of the private economy it really draws significant money out of. Now we're slowly working on cutting that and switching over to we're getting our money out of Wall Street. So what's the state going to care about? Well, it's going to care about what Wall Street is doing. It's not going to care about what's happening on Main Street in Fairbanks or Anchorage or Ketchikan or Bethel or, pick a community.
Right.
And until we get to a place where that is what the state cares about again, because that's where its money comes from, our economy is going to be in a hole because our elected leaders can regulate or tax a business out of existence and not have to care because that's not where their money's coming from.
Which again goes right back to what we were talking about. The only state in the union where the government does not have to care about what's going on in the private sector in their state. Because every other economy, every other state has to depend on, state income tax, state sales tax, some kind of revenue coming from the private sector to fund it. And we've broken that connection. And so again, like they said, well, I don't care what happens in 2 or 3 years. I'm out of here. That's why they were pushing for the permanent fund to hit $100 billion, because then they could count on $5 billion a year spinning off from that. They don't want to have that connection.
Correct. Yeah, you take that $5 billion a year, use it to leverage in your federal money, because you got to keep in mind that for our state budget, on average, about half of our funding is federal, and usually there's a state match involved there. So you use that $5 billion off of the permanent fund to leverage in another $5 billion off of the federal government, and that's $10 billion. And our state economy is something in the neighborhood of $50 billion. So that puts the state government at 20% of the state economy, which is about where it's been for the last 20-ish years. And now we're sitting pretty, and we don't have to care what the rest of the economy does. And you know what? Actually, it gets to a point where if a person leaves the state, that's actually a benefit to the state, not a cost, because they weren't deriving any revenue off of them. And when that person left, they took their kids with them, so they're not driving on the roads anymore. Their kids aren't in school anymore, so we have to pay for any of that stuff. And so we're getting to this very perverse incentive where it actually makes it better for the state government if people leave state.
That's a sad statement right there. It's better for the state if people leave, because then they can create the enormous national park that they're looking for. And that's the good stuff. Robb Myers, thank you, my friend. We appreciate you coming on board and joining us today. We're out of time. Hold the line for just a second, folks. Tomorrow, Brad Keithley, Chris Story. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. All right, final bite at the apple for Robb Myers. He's just marking down the Michael Duke Show on his log right now to make sure that people know where it was going.
Not marking down the Duke Show, but yeah, that's my logbook right there. That's this stupid thing. All right, I'm going to go a completely another direction here for a minute because I've got you. So the federal government mandated these e-logs starting at the end of 2017. Truckers have been doing logs with hours of duty status since the 1930s. So, that part's nothing new, but these dumb things became mandatory at the end of 2017. And I had a feeling that they were causing more problems than they were fixing. And so over the summer, I had one of my staff members dig into the data with it. And we took a look at the crash data, and it was relatively low in 2015, 2016, 2017. And then in 2018 and 2019, so, the couple of years after these dumb things got mandated, the truck crashes around the state went up 50%. And keep in mind that this is during a time period when we were in a recession, and so there's less trucks moving, but the truck crashes are going up at the same time that these dumb e-logs are mandated. And then to top it off, when COVID hit, truck crashes went down because there were fewer trucks on the road, and fewer other vehicles on the road for the trucks to hit too. But the truck crashes during COVID were still higher than they were during your baseline years of 2015, 2016, 2017. And I mean, I look at that data and I say that is such a huge spike that I can't attribute that to anything more than the cotton picking federal government requiring us to use these darn e-logs.
It's good. We're from the government. We're here to help. That's the bottom line. All right, Rob, final thoughts here before I let you go this morning and get back on the road.
Well, I just ask people to keep watching the videos, keep sharing them out. Let's change the conversation here. The issues that we're facing in this state aren't just about declining oil production. They're not just about what are we doing with the dividend. There's all these other problems that are all connected, and we have to look at the big picture, both to understand the actual problem, because that's the first step in solving the problem is admitting what the problem is, right? But then also to understand really what the solution has to be. It's got to be this big, whole-encompassing thing. Going back to the fiscal policy working group where they said, it can't be a piecemeal solution. It has to be done all at once, all of these different moving pieces and parts, because that's how big the problem really is.
All right. Robb Myers, thank you, my friend. As always, it's good to see you. Thanks for making technology work. We appreciate you. And we will talk to you again soon. Maybe we'll get a recap next week of this new video. We'll see what it. Well, I can't wait to watch it. So, thank you, Rob, for coming on board and be a part of it today.
You bet. Have a good day, Michael. We'll catch you later.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Robb Myers, our guest here on the Michael Duke Show. We are out of time for today. We got to get out of here. Got stuff to do. Please like and share, like and follow, do all the stuff that is important out there to share the show and get more people. Don't forget, again, tomorrow is Election Day in the Mat-Su Borough. So go off with you. Make sure you get your voting done. Get it all put together. All right, folks, have a great day. Be kind, love one another, live well.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.